You have been working for years. You earn money. You are not broke in the obvious way, but your savings barely moves and you cannot explain why. And that feeling, that quiet panic every time you check your balance, is exactly what this book predicted. You were taught to go to school, get a good job, work hard, and save. Your parents told you that. Your teachers told you that. And you believed it because why would the people who love you teach you something wrong? But here is what nobody tells you. That advice was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you a reliable employee. And every year you follow it, the gap between you and the people who actually understand money gets wider. Rich Dad. Poor Dad is not a book about getting rich. It is a book about how money actually works. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That is what we are breaking down today. Every lesson, every shift, and what to actually do with it. This whole book is built on one contrast. A highly educated father who struggled with money his whole life, and a man with almost no formal education who became one of the wealthiest people in Hawaii. Same country, same era, completely different results. Poor Dad had a PhD. He worked in government. He earned a steady salary his whole career. And he spent most of his life financially stressed, living paycheck to paycheck, telling his son that money was not that important and that a good job was all anyone needed. He told Robert to study hard, get a secure job, and work for a good company. He believed that the company you worked for was responsible for your financial future. He trusted the system completely. And the system gave him exactly what it was designed to give, a reliable employee who never built wealth. Rich Dad never finished school. He started businesses. He made mistakes and lost money and started again. But he had one belief that changed everything. He believed it was his responsibility, not his employer's, to make himself wealthy. That single belief separated everything. Robert grew up with both voices in his head. One voice told him to fear losing a job. The other voice told him to fear missing an opportunity. One voice said, work hard for money. The other said, make money work hard for you. And most of us, without knowing it, have only ever heard the first voice. And that is where it gets real. Here is Marcus. 26 years old, first real job, earns a decent salary. His parents celebrate. His mum frames his first payslip, and Marcus does exactly what he was taught. He works hard, pays his bills, buys a nice car, and waits for his salary to go up. Then he waits some more. Now here is Darius. Same age, same starting salary. But Darius read Rich Dad. Poor Dad at 22, and it rewired something in him. His first question was not how do I keep this job? It was how do I use this salary to buy something that pays me? He started small. Very small. 5 years later. Marcus is making more money. He also has a bigger car payment, a nicer apartment, and the same savings he had at 26. Darius makes almost the same salary, but he owns a small rental property that covers his car costs every single month. One of them is building wealth. One is building a lifestyle. Rich Dad. Poor Dad teaches 4 core lessons, not opinions, not theories. 4 specific shifts in how you see money that, once you understand them, make you realize you have been playing the wrong game entirely. We are going through each one. And after each one, ask yourself honestly, which dad taught me this? Lesson 1. The difference between an asset and a liability. Rich Dad gave Robert the simplest definition he had ever heard. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That is it. That is the whole lesson. And it sounds obvious until you realize most people own almost zero assets. Most people point to their house as their biggest asset. Rich Dad said no. Your house is a liability. It takes money out of your pocket every month in mortgage payments, property tax, insurance, and maintenance. An asset would be a property that someone else pays rent to live in, so money flows into your pocket instead. Your car is a liability. Your phone is a liability. Your designer wardrobe is a liability. They all take money out of your pocket every month. And most people spend their entire working life buying liabilities and calling it success. They get a raise and immediately upgrade their liabilities. The assets never come. Lesson 2. Most people work for money. Rich people make money work for them. This sounds like a cliché until you understand the mechanic behind it. When you work for money, you trade time for dollars. When your money works for you, it earns while you sleep, while you eat, and while you are at the gym. This is the part most people miss. Keisha worked hard for 20 years. Good job, consistent promotions, reliable income. But every raise she got, her lifestyle expanded to match it. A bigger flat, a newer car, better holidays. She never sat still long enough to ask where the money was going. She assumed working harder would eventually solve it. At 51, Keisha sat down and actually looked at her numbers for the first time. She had a good pension coming. She had a house with some equity, but she had no assets generating income. The moment she stopped working, everything stopped. There was no machine running in the background. There was only her. Rich Dad spent his life building machines, a business that ran without him, a property that paid rent, an investment that compounded quietly. He was not smarter than Keisha. He was not luckier. He just built something that worked while he was not looking. And he started early enough that the machine had decades to grow. Lesson 3. The Rat Race. Rich Dad described the rat race as the cycle that keeps most people financially trapped their entire lives. You need money, so you get a job. You get a job, so you earn money. You earn money, so you spend it on things that feel like progress. And then you need more money, so you get a better job. Rich Dad said 2 emotions keep people trapped in the rat race: fear and greed. Fear makes you take the stable job you hate because losing your income terrifies you. And greed makes you spend the raise before it lands because you finally have permission to want more. And between those 2 emotions, the rat race runs itself. The exit from the rat race is not earning more. People get a 50% pay rise and are still in the rat race. The exit is owning assets that generate income you did not have to trade your time for. When your passive income covers your expenses, you are out. That is what Rich Dad called financial freedom. Not millions, just more coming in than going out. Theo was 23. He read Rich Dad. Poor Dad in 2 days and almost threw it across the room. Not because it was wrong, because it made him realize he had already made the rat race mistake at 23. He had a car loan, a credit card, and 0 assets. And he had been calling that starting out. Theo did not overhaul his life. He did one thing. He set up an automatic transfer of $150 a month into a low-cost index fund. Not because he had it figured out, because the book said to pay yourself first and make the decision before the money could be spent on anything else. And it does not stop there. Lesson 4. Financial literacy. Rich Dad said the reason most people stay poor is not laziness and not lack of opportunity. It is that they were never taught the language of money. How to read a financial statement. What a cash flow is. The difference between gross income and net worth. Schools teach everything except the subject that controls your entire adult life. A financial statement is just a map of where money comes from and where it goes. Income at the top, expenses below it, assets on one side, liabilities on the other. Rich Dad taught Robert to read this map before making any financial decision. The question he always asked was, does this add to my assets or my liabilities? Here is one of the most uncomfortable parts of the book. Rich Dad showed Robert that business owners legally pay tax after expenses, meaning they use pre-tax money to build wealth. Employees pay tax first and then try to build wealth with what is left. The rules are the same for everyone. Most people just never learn they exist. Now here is the part most breakdowns skip. They summarize the book. They do not tell you what to actually do next. So we are not skipping this part. 4 specific actions based on the 4 lessons. Not abstract mindset advice. Actual moves you can make this month, no matter where your income is right now. Action 1. Sit down this week and list every single thing you own. Then honestly ask, does this put money into my pocket or take money out? Your car payment takes money out. Your streaming subscriptions take money out. Your credit card interest takes money out. Most people have never done this audit. Do it this week. Before you buy anything with your next pay rise, ask one question. Is this an asset or a liability? A bigger flat is a liability. A new car is a liability. If the first thing you do with extra income is upgrade your lifestyle, you are following the poor dad script. The rich dad move is to build one asset before you upgrade anything. Action 2. Pay yourself first. Not after bills, not after food. First, set up an automatic transfer the day your salary lands that moves a fixed amount directly into a savings or investment account before you can spend it. 10% if you can. Even 5% if that is all you have. The amount matters less than the habit. Most people never get this far. Amara set up a $20 automatic transfer 18 months ago. Not because she had a master plan, because she read about pay yourself first and decided it was easier to move the money before she could argue herself out of it. Nobody knew. Nobody congratulated her. The transfer just ran quietly every 2 weeks. 18 months later, she has $850 in that account. Nobody is throwing a party for her. It is not a mansion. But it is the first time in her adult life she has had money that no bill has claimed. And for the first time she is asking, how do I make this grow instead of how do I make it to Friday? Action 3. Learn one new money skill every single month. Rich Dad. Poor Dad is not telling you to become a financial expert overnight. It is telling you that financial ignorance has a price. Every month you do not understand how taxes work, how compound interest works, how a balance sheet works. Someone else profits from your confusion. Reading a profit and loss statement. Understanding what a dividend is. Knowing the difference between a Roth account and a traditional account. None of these things are complicated once you learn them. They feel complicated because you were never taught them. That is not your fault, but learning them is your responsibility. Action 4. Buy your first asset. It does not need to be a property. It does not need to be a business. It can be 5 shares in a broad market index fund. It can be a small digital product that earns passive income. The point is not the size. The point is starting. Because the first asset teaches you more than any book. If you invest $200 a month from age 25 at an average return of 10% annually, you have over $470,000 by 65. The same $200 starting at 35 gives you just under $200,000. Same money, same rate. 40 years of difference versus 30. Start now. Every year of delay costs more than you think. Jerome is not a startup founder. He is not a crypto millionaire. He is a 31-year-old who works in logistics and earns a normal salary. 3 years ago, he bought 4 shares in an index fund. Not because he had a vision, because they were on sale and he had $40 he had not spent. He checked the account 6 months later. He never stopped adding to it. Not every month, not on a perfect schedule, but when he had $40 or $80 and nothing urgent to pay, he put it in. 3 years later, his account is over $4,000. Jerome did not become rich. He became someone who has assets. That is a different category from where he started. Here is what this book is really asking you to do. Here is what Rich Dad, Poor Dad is really asking you to do. It is not asking you to quit your job. It is not telling you that salaries are bad or that your parents were enemies. It is asking you to add one more lens to how you look at every financial decision you make. Ask, does this move me closer to owning things or further away? Poor Dad saw his salary as his income. Rich Dad saw his salary as seed money. Poor Dad measured success by how big his paycheck was. Rich Dad measured success by how much of his time he had bought back. Same country, same laws, same tax system. Different lens. And the lens you choose decides everything. The cost of staying in the poor dad mindset is not visible today. You will not feel it this month or next year. You will feel it at 55 when the salary stops and there is nothing behind it. When your pension is less than your expenses. When your kids are grown and your options are smaller than your bills. That is the price. And it is paid quietly over a very long time. Here is the good news. You are not behind. You are just at the beginning of knowing. And knowing is everything. Every person who ever built wealth started at zero. Every person who ever broke the poor dad cycle had a day, a week, a book, a conversation that changed how they saw it. This might be that day for you. You get to decide. Before you close this video, write these 4 things down. 1. Audit every liability you own. 2. Set up a pay yourself first automatic transfer today. 3. Read or watch one thing about money every single month. 4. Buy your first asset before you upgrade anything in your lifestyle. These 4 things. This week. This book has sold over 32 million copies, not because it tells people to get rich quick, because it told an entire generation of people that the way they had been taught to think about money was costing them their future. It was uncomfortable then and it is uncomfortable now. That is exactly why it still matters. Which dad are you listening to right now? Not which dad you grew up with. Which voice is making your financial decisions today? Is it the voice that says, stay safe, keep the job, do not take risks? Or is it the voice that says, learn the rules, buy the asset, build the machine? The answer changes every time you decide where your next dollar goes. If this video changed how you see money, the next step is understanding compound interest. Because once you have your first asset, how it grows over time is the entire game. Most people underestimate it in year 1 and are stunned by year 20. That breakdown is already on this channel. Watch it next. Subscribe if this hit different from other finance content you have seen. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of the 4 lessons landed hardest for you? Was it assets versus liabilities, the rat race, pay yourself first, or the tax advantage? Your answer tells you exactly where to start. I will read every single reply. Now here is the one thing Rich Dad, Poor Dad does not tell you. It tells you to buy assets. It does not tell you which assets to buy first when you have almost no money to start with. That is a completely different conversation. And it is one I am going to have with you in the next video. Do not miss it.